Welcome to what I guess I'm calling season 2 of the Faithful Five podcast. And today we're very happy to have Brenden Boyle, who is a police sergeant with the city of Coatesville. How you doing today,
Pretty
Brenden?
good. Pretty good, Tom. Appreciate you having me on.
Good, good. Awesome. Appreciate your time. So why don't we start like we always do? Just give a little background on yourself and your family and what's happening with you.
Sure. Again, my name is Brenden Boyle. I am married to my lovely wife, Shannon. We are members at St. Norbert Parish in Paoli. We have two young kids. We have a daughter who is 9 and a 5-year-old son. Um, yeah, professionally, like you kind of mentioned, I'm a sergeant with the City of Coatesville Police Department. I've been here at this agency for about 16 years. Um, yeah, so that's me in a nutshell.
Okay. I'm sure you get that that's a cool job all the time, but we won't get into that. And I'm sure your faith plays a role into that. So talk a little bit about your faith journey. At what point did you feel like your faith was playing a larger role? Did something trigger it? And, just give us some background there.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I would say, as far back as my early childhood, I can, remember, growing up in a Catholic household, going to, Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, um, church on Sundays, all that kind of stuff. Um, so faith, in some degree has always been the part of my life to some degree. Um, I can always remember back to like times like what in grade school when we would be in church and I would just, something that sticks with me to this day is just the amount of, like reverence that we had in church and that the building itself commanded from us is something that just always stuck out with me as a little kid. Um, so fast forwarding into like my high school days, I went to Bishop Shanahan. Um, and like any other journey, there's ebbs and flows. But certainly one of the high points I can remember was my senior year of high school. Um, and it got to a point where I had a very personal um, relationship with Jesus. It wasn't as outward as many other people in school, but it was something that I kind of like had a little bit deeper inside, I felt. Um, and I can remember when that started to kind of develop a little bit was they offered a communion service before like every lunch period. So one day I just decided that I was going to, start going to that. So every day, I made it my goal to receive Eucharist before lunch. Um, and I remember, a very distinct memory of, the people that I sat with at lunch were, started to like catch on and they were like, where do you go like before lunch? Like, what are you doing? And so I explained to them like what I was doing. So I, grab my books, head down to the cafeteria, and on my way I would stop in there. So at first I can remember their reaction, like, really? Like you? And so, like after a while they asked me, they were like, hey, do you mind if we join you? And, I was like, yeah, absolutely. And it was, a group of people that maybe, others would not typically see, like seeking that out. But it was just something, that very quiet and very, like humbly that we did before lunch. And that was definitely one of the higher points, of my faith journey. Just seeing, the power of the Eucharist and how, it can impact others.
Oh, that's awesome. So go back to the high school for a second. What was it that kind of gave you the courage to do something like that? Were you struggling with something, or you just, you felt just the calling with the Eucharist? Because it's, I mean, a high schooler, I'm always admire people that tap into their faith in such a strong way at such a young age.
Um, yeah, it wasn't really like a struggle that called me there. It was more of, just in inner feeling that I had of something that was missing at that time. And I just I gave it a shot, and I really, really, enjoyed the like the benefits that I felt from it, like at an internal level. Um, and then just, to kind of see how that, like impacted other people and was able to, like draw them in.
So talk about jump into along that journey. Were there certain people that were really influential in your faith journey, whether that or otherwise, parents, friends, other folks?
Yeah, I would say, I've been pretty blessed throughout my life to, to have several really good role models and examples of faith. One of my aunts was a nun, so that was always somebody that, I always, would look up to in a religious sense. But, as I, like grew up in one of my like really good high school friends, Chris, still good friends with him today, and he's still really, really active in his faith. And it's something that we connect on a pretty, deeper level than some of the other friendships that we still maintain with other people from high school times. Um, and some people around St. Norbert's, and my in-laws, my wife. There's so many people that I look to and admire, for various aspects of their faith that influence me in certain ways. Um, but yeah, I always tend to go back to my mom, and like how she was with her faith, and in ways it kind of reminds me of myself. She was a little bit more like quiet about her faith, and she wasn't like in your face about certain things about going to church or praying, but it was more of how she lived, and the example she set for others, um, that really like sticks with me. Um, I remember all the way back to when I was like a little kid, and she distinct um, devotion to the Blessed Mary, Blessed Mother. Um, and it's something that always sticks with me. For years, going back to like when I was like in high school, and maybe that's, kind of going back to, might be some connection there. But my mom struggled with like health issues for quite some years, for the better part of 20 years, COPD and eventually breast cancer. Uh,
Mm.
but throughout that time, she was, really good example for me in terms of faith and humility. Um, something that I always, like look back and try to like model, some of my behaviors after. Um, like, and like towards the end with my mom, she was on hospice for, like very short time. But eventually she passed at home right next to my dad, and he tells the story that, like as she was going through that, she was sitting there like praying the rosary. And I often like think of that and like how beautiful that is in a way. How to kind of just, the culmination of your faith, right? Is, like what happens when we leave this earth. And she was, preparing herself for that. So I often think about, the words that she was saying at that moment, like now and at the hour of our death. I know sometimes like we say it, and it's a prayer, and we just kind of repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. But when you like break it down and like think about it, like that's pretty heavy for me. Um, so I would say like certainly my mom had a really big impact. And again, she was very like humble and quiet about her faith, but yeah, certainly a good example for me.
So let's jump into what do you think uh, in your journey so far, what makes it such a challenge for uh, men to live the faith, we talk about a lot of different things on this podcast, but what's your perspective on some of the obstacles that we have, or, even that you've faced it's not an easy day-to-day thing to live the faith.
Yeah, I would say that, like our society as a whole, I think tends to hamstring us in our faith to some extent. I think that we get caught up in the fast-paced environment that we find ourselves at work, and in our social circles and all that stuff. And we kind of get like blinded by like other things like money and power, prestige, all that. So I think that that certainly is an obstacle for men these days. Um, Another thing is, and I can speak for myself, and this might be, ring true to some other people too, but the ability of men to compartmentalize. And I think we, kind of do the same thing with our faith at sometimes too, where, yes, we go to church or we go to this prayer group, but then it's, now we're on to work, and now we're on to, social life and stuff like that, where kind of like you turn it off, and then, like, okay, it's Sunday again, we'll turn it back on. So I think that, is an obstacle certainly in my life. So something that we definitely need to work on.
Yeah, okay. Why, and it is hard. So you talked about you have 3 kids, right? 3?
2 kids.
2, sorry.
Yeah.
I gave you an extra one. You're not ready for another one right now. How about the faith journey and dealing with all the pressures of, you have a job, obviously your job in itself is, like a pressure cooker, I'm sure, on some days, providing for them, helping your wife out and saving time to be able to have energy and play with them.
Like try to guide them what's really important in life. So, it's something that, takes constant reminders, to yourself, but then also, understanding that, you have a responsibility to, to form your children's faith as well. Like you're the beginning. And kind of how, going back to like where my mom and the importance of the role that she played in my life and my, faith formation. It's something that, like, I understand, like, we definitely can't take lightly. So it's something that we definitely try to prioritize as parents.
Okay. Close with a couple. What do you think the biggest men in dealing with their faith? Is there a myth that you think, or things that maybe as you've increased your faith and on your spiritual journey, that things that you maybe have thought in high school that aren't necessarily the case?
Yeah, I would say, like one thing that I find, that maybe kind of, deterred me at times was that, like we have to be perfect, or, have a complete understanding of, the entire Catholic religion. So, I think that, that certainly is something for me that, I find that, like, at this point where I'm trying to, increase my knowledge about the faith, because going back to like when we were little, kind of, and I hear this a lot from other guys in similar situations where they went all the way through Catholic school and, like went to church every Sunday, but know like next to nothing about the faith. So, we're not all going to be perfect, but, just having that desire to want to learn more and kind of like, seek it out is pretty big for me.
So how about personally some tips or things that you do to kind of keep a straight line? Because we all fall off the truck sometimes. How about from your vantage point, just some tips that for some men that might be looking for some ideas?
Sure. Yeah. If I could give give any advice, someone who's, maybe trying to, get to a deeper place within their faith, is just really just immerse yourself in it as much as you can. Um, going back to how I said, we kind of like tend to compartmentalize sometimes, including with our faith. But if we can try to like break down those walls and have our faith be, more a part of our everyday life, whether it be, like in social circles or at work or, within your family. I think that's, something we all should strive to do. Whether it's, joining, like a small group or, like Batman is you, doing, Bible studies or even just reading scripture. Something that I started to do, I struggle with it. Like I'm not perfect, but and sometimes I'm like scratching my head because I don't really understand stuff. But making that effort to really like dive in a little bit deeper than where you were, to get yourself to a better understanding of some of the things that you might not have understood before. So I think, yeah, just immersing yourself in your faith is definitely, something that we should do to, just to try to get deeper into it and kind of have a better overall understanding. Yeah, so that
All
would
right.
be.
And we may or may not, you would talk a little bit about, obviously, you're a sergeant and you're dealing with a lot of different things every day. Just from a business, whether you're an accountant or a doctor, or just talk a little bit about how faith kind of not guides you, but I would think, especially in your line of business, helps you to get through some of those more challenging days.
Yeah, it certainly has helped over the years. It's funny. I was just over this summer. I was on vacation. And we were doing like a guided fishing tour, and so the fishing guide and I started talking, and my career came up, and he's like, "Wow, like I can't even imagine like what's going on in this world now, and like how do you deal with all of that?" And the first thing I said was, that I have strong faith. So it's something that like that I have over the years like learned to lean on more and more. Um, it's no secret that we deal with like pretty terrible stuff on a pretty frequent basis. And where I'm at, we, unfortunately see a lot more than some other agencies in our area. Um, so having that foundation, strong faith foundation, as a way to, to help process and to help cope with some of the things that we're dealing with. It's certainly been helpful over the years.
Great. All right, Brendan, appreciate you taking the time to join us on the Faithful Five, and we look forward to talking to you again at some point.
All right, sounds good. Thanks again, Tom. Appreciate it.